show with me, Dan, and my guest, Jade. How you doing, Jade?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. How are
Good.
you?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. It's good to have you back.
Yeah, it's good to be back on the show. I really enjoyed listening to us the last time.
Yeah. I enjoyed doing it more than listening to myself back, to be fair.
Yeah, when you listen to yourself back, it's always like, oh, I need to stop saying that, or
yeah,
I need to stop umming or saying like, or things like that.
yeah, exactly. For anyone who's tuning in or didn't listen to the last episode, me and Jade did together. Just a quick summary of what it was. We were talking about the fact that Jade works in a special needs school and the difficulties that's faced during this time. And also we talked a little bit about the sort of history of Tory cuts over the last 10 years and how that affected previous schools that she worked in, especially in sort of drama departments and stuff like that. So yeah, check that out if that sounds interesting to you. So one thing that you mentioned briefly in the last episode is that you studied, was it drama was the title of your course at uni?
Yeah, so I did drama and applied theatre. So drama and applied theatre is sort of theatre in the community, so theatre in education. So we
Right.
did so we worked in schools, did drama workshops in schools, we worked in prisons.
Wow.
Yeah, that was cool. So we worked in prisons, we did a lot of touring, so theatre in education touring, we put on shows within local communities, we did a lot of social cohesion work in regards to bringing the theatre to audiences of two opposite ends of the spectrum and having people sort of interact in that way. We went over to South Africa and did some theatre work over there. We did a thing called legislative theatre, where if there's a problem in the community, then people do forum theatre workshops to basically bring light to those issues. So you do a performance where you reenact something that had happened and people play different antagonists and protagonists and stuff like that. And
Right.
yeah, it was a practitioner called Augusto Boal. So that was his creation, so to speak. So yeah, we did a lot of work about that, and then I went into education and did following uni. I taught drama in secondary school and did sort of put on productions and did some cover work in the drama department and then taught in that department for a while. But yeah, definitely didn't ever want to end up working in a school, to be honest, but it's what it is.
Okay, well, yeah, we'll come back to that in a bit, I guess, in terms of sort of how you transitioned into teaching. Yeah, so the applied, was it applied theatre? So drama and applied
Yeah,
theatre. So
yeah,
the applied theatre side of it was the side of getting into the community. That was more that side of it, was
yeah,
it?
yeah.
Um,
So it's fundamentally all about using theatre and drama as a tool for change.
right.
And how you can use theatre and how powerful theatre can be, or drama can be, whether it be in a therapeutic sense, so drama therapy, or you know, working within schools to target issues that are going on. I'm sure you remember, like when you're in school and you'd have like different drama companies coming in and doing like workshops about drugs or things like that, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so
So
yeah, it was really cool.
yeah, no, it sounds really interesting. And so what for someone who, and this isn't my viewpoint, but for someone who might see, oh well, going and doing plays in South Africa or doing drama in these different communities that have got problems aren't going to do anything. We need,
Yeah,
police. We need this. We need that. Whatever. Who don't have. Who don't see any relevance of drama to tackle any social problems. What
yeah.
did you see what did you experience or learn in terms of what change it can make to these sort of communities?
I think people need to remember that not everyone will talk to the police
Mm,
to try and help change, because not everyone has the trust in the government, or if there's an issue that are going on. Like, we were working in rural parts of South Africa, in the villages, in
mm,
really, really deprived, poor areas, where you don't just call the police if there's an issue. The area is um essentially governed by the elders of that community, or because that's just culturally how it is, and
mm,
their way of dealing with things, and is telling stories, and doing things like that. And we did a lot of AIDS awareness work, because originally we were meant to go to Malawi, but there was some sort of travel issues, so we didn't end up going. And so the whole project was about bringing awareness to bringing AIDS awareness, and particularly supporting sex workers in Africa to use to be careful, use protection, and things like that. And sometimes it's not as easy for people to go. um in the Western world, we think, oh yeah, if you have an issue, go to the police, or you'll call the police, or you'll call an ambulance, or what ambulance is different, but you know what I mean.
yeah.
um but we need to remember that that's not black and white. We're very privileged. Well, some people are very privileged
Mm,
to be able to feel comfortable to pick up the phone and speak to the authorities if they have an issue. But unfortunately, we don't live in a world where everyone is comfortable doing so.
yeah.
Um, and particularly when we worked in prisons and stuff, um, I'm not working with someone in a prison. It's not really like their relationship is clearly broken down with the law. So
Mm, yeah.
it's all about therapeutically finding ways to tackle certain issues, because there are often more to someone just committing a crime.
Mm,
um if you delve into um why that happened, what's the social economic status of that person, what did they come from, what was their upbringing, and things like that. And then you sort of see a clearer picture of how things happen and why things happen. And sometimes it's just about giving someone the tools to be able to express themselves,
mm,
um, rather than, we weren't trying to go in and be superheroes, but actually sometimes people have never been asked how they feel,
mm.
and people have never had the opportunity to express certain things, um, you know, within their lives and stuff like that. So we've done a lot of mask work. I worked in a women's prison before, where we did a lot of mask work, and the masks represented different personality traits or different things that have happened in their lives. I think sometimes when you use masks, it's a lot easier because you're not so exposed.
Mm.
Um, and it really helps people to open up about their experiences and what has happened in the past. And sometimes it's just about just a little bit of, I don't know, healing, I guess, to
Mm.
sort of get things off of your chest, and just about working collaboratively and teamwork. I think that's really important, especially if you're trying to rehabilitate people back into the community, where they'll hopefully go into the workplace.
Mm.
Being able to work with different people, taking on roles and responsibilities is really important, particularly when you work in sort of youth offenders. Um,
So in the
so
prisons, you weren't like putting on a show. You were like, it was like more you as the students, and I guess your tutor or whoever
yeah,
would be doing workshops. Is it more of a workshop thing, or did it include a show as well? Like, how did that sort of work in the prisons?
this is really interesting. Our job was to go in and do workshops in prisons. Um, and we also did a prison arts conference. So we organised a arts conference, which is basically where we promoted the importance of art, using the arts within prisons.
Right.
And we worked with a lot of other theatre companies to see what they were doing. But what we also had the privilege of seeing whilst on my course is I went to a prison in Bristol, and the Royal Opera House worked with, it was a lifers prison, worked with lifers, and they performed Les Mis. So they were funded. So these independent funders put money into this project where the Royal Opera House put on a production of Les Mis with the prisoners alongside professional actors
Right.
and
Okay.
actresses.
Sorry, lifers is people that have got a life sentence, is it? Or
Yeah, life sentences.
right.
Yeah, I've been in there for like 10 to 15 to 25 years.
Right.
And they
Right.
put on the production of Les Miserables,
Right.
which was, I don't know how I feel about, I still don't know how I feel about it. It's literally been 10 years and I still don't know how I feel, because it was good, and they really enjoyed it, and the prisoners got so much out of it. But if in hindsight, from a therapeutic sense, it's like, you watch this, they did all this. Can you hear that siren in the background?
Yeah, it's okay though. It's fine. We're talking about prisons, so it's sort of quite fitting.
um they did this, well, obviously they rehearsed for such a long period of time. They put on a performance. I think there were 3 shows, and they had like a full functioning set. So they transformed the prison gym into a full functioning set. It had fly towers, it had lights, like so much money had been pumped into this, right?
Wow.
And the audience, that when I looked in the audience, it was like your upper echelon white, like upper to middle class people watching it. It was a really weird and strange dynamic.
Right. Yeah.
And so they'd put all this, they'd funded this show, the prisoners put on the show ended, and then it was like, that was it.
Right.
And I was just like, is this whole facade just to make someone feel slightly better, like, oh, okay, I've got this money, I want to give a certain amount of money to this charity to put on this show, just to make myself feel good and give myself a pat on the back and to avoid tax evasion.
Yeah.
And
So sorry. So who funded the show? Like, what type of was it? Yeah. So who funded the show?
so it was independent. It wasn't like government funding. It was like investors, so like rich people.
Right.
Um, yeah, who obviously enjoy opera and musicals and stuff like that. And then yeah, they put on the show, and then we had it like, I had a seminar about it after, and my lecturer was talking about, like, you know, what do you get more out of watching that, because it was amazing, the show was amazing. Do you get more out of watching that, or do you get more out of, if you look at, like, we did some work in Scrubs prison, where like Scrubs is like, it's, I don't know whether you've heard of it, but it's just like really shit. It's like the oldest prison.
Right.
It's like just, oh yeah, not good. And the prisoners there, this charity came in and they taught them how to play instruments. So for like 4 weeks, this guy, he learned how to play the piano, but he only had like 1 hour of one-to-one session with this charity, like a week. But
Right.
he was able to like play, like I won't be able to do that. And it was really low budget. It was really basic. It was a really basic production, but they all came and they learned instruments, and they were taught sort of self-discipline, and they'd practice. And I think like I got more out of watching that than I did watching this big ostentatious production of Les Mis, to be honest, because it just didn't feel authentic. It didn't fit. I was like, and the prisoners really enjoyed it, and I 100, like, they definitely got something out of that during that time. But then I'm like, okay, but after, everyone goes home to their nice houses, don't they? After we watch that, and then they just, so straight after, everyone, like, you watched it, you forget you're in a prison, and then as soon as the lights came up, they were in cuffs going back to their cells.
Right.
So it was really weird experience.
So
Um,
so what was the main differences you seen between the performance you put on in the, apart from like the production value, like what were
I
the other
think just
differences?
who I just I don't know. I just think that the main difference for me was that the audience. So the
Mm,
audience were, when I went to the other one in Scrubs prison, the audience were like family members and I guess like people from the community, but it was smaller. And then when I went to, when you go to the theatre
mm,
and people are like really dressed up, and sometimes when I go to the theatre, like I feel out of place myself.
yeah,
And I've been going to theatre for years, but oh, I'm always the minority when I go to the theatre.
right.
Um, and you know, when I went to the prison, I was really surprised at the demographic of the audience members, to be honest.
Mm,
Um, it was just people like dressed up to go to the theatre, not like they were going to a prison. It was very strange.
right. Yeah,
Um,
that makes sense. So what like why in what way do you feel a minority when sometimes when you go to the theatre?
because this theatre is mainly white, um, and I'm not white, so
Right, yeah.
the when I go, like the audience is predominantly made up of like white middle slash upper class
Mm,
people. And then when I go, we're like, there's often like myself and maybe a couple of my friends, and then like one other group
mm.
um who make up the ethnic minority.
Yeah,
um so
it's
I used to find theatres intimidating, to be honest.
mm.
um but now not so much as I've gotten older.
You're not the first person I've heard that from as well. There's a black girl I know who she's been in theatre for a long time. She's directed
Yeah,
plays. She was really successful in Edinburgh, I think last year or the year before. She's passionate about theatre and she's heavily involved in it. And she
yeah,
expressed to me that yeah, just when you're the only ethnic minority sitting in an audience full of white people, it's just anyone in that situation is going to feel really just
yeah.
yeah, like they shouldn't be there or yeah.
Do you know what's so interesting? So a few months ago, I went to the theatre and I watched this play, and it was about post-apartheid South Africa.
Right.
And I expected the audience to have a larger, I expected it to be like majority ethnic.
Yeah.
Um, but it was me, my two friends, and a family, a black family in front of us were the
Mm.
only ethnic minorities in the whole auditorium. And
Wow.
I was like, like, I was very, very shocked. And some of the racism that was in that play was just wild, like some of the off the cuff comments.
Mm.
And then I was like hearing like laughter, and I was like, oh my God, like
Jeez,
what
yeah.
the hell? It was so it was really weird.
Yeah.
Um it was really weird. I left feeling like really angry.
Mm.
But not, I thought the play was great. Like the play was so good. But just I was annoyed that there wasn't more ethnic minorities in the audience, because I feel like if there were, and the show that we were watching, then people would have been a lot more conscious
Mm.
of their reactions to what was going on. But then I think, oh, they'll probably just talk about it, like if they can't say it overtly, if they can't react like the way that they did in the play because of the amount of ethnic minorities that are in the audience, and they'll probably just do it behind closed doors anyway. So
Yeah, that's such an interesting point because it's an interesting point as well from the point of view of like your experience of a performance. Like it's not just a performance, like you said yourself, like you actually really rated the play.
yeah,
But the fact that an audience demographic and just the audience itself can really taint like your experience is
yeah,
is really interesting and Yeah, I think it's a really important thing for especially white people, or people who are ethnic majority, I guess, to hear that. So I know that my friend who I mentioned before, she was involved a lot in trying to reach out to ethnic minority communities, because
Yeah,
there is obviously a disparity in between um, the people that are going to these plays and are involved in the theatre,
yeah.
and the people that potentially could be or want to be. Do you? Well, I guess there's a couple of questions. Did you approach that much in your studies, like actually sort of trying to target ethnic minority communities and bring them more to the theatre scene, and like what's your feeling about why that is? Why in an apartheid play um, are it so heavily the audience white? Yeah, so just it'd be good to know your thoughts on that.
I think, interestingly, we didn't tackle that in university because the majority of people that were on my course were white.
Right.
The
Yeah.
majority of people in my university were white.
Right. Yeah.
So to tackle that, which I would be quite passionate about, like you
Mm.
work in groups, um, and a lot of your, well, obviously in drama or anything sort of creative that you have, a lot of it, you rely heavily on your group, and the syllabus actually. So maybe the syllabus should have um, looked, maybe the syllabus should have been more diverse in that respect.
Mm.
We did have, obviously, we did travel to Africa and do that, but actually, that's one thing. But talking about the diversity on your doorstep is important as well,
Mm.
and where you live, and looking at where the demographic of where you live is really important. But yeah,
Yeah.
we didn't. Do you know what? Oh my God! So sorry, I'm like going to go off on a
No,
massive
go
tangent.
for it.
But so we watched this play, um, and we had this module where we'd go and watch these different plays, and then we would come back and have a seminar and talk about it, um lecture, sorry, and talk about it. So we went to this play in Stratford, and it was called, I can't even remember what it's called, but basically it was a play about a Muslim family, and it was really funny, and it was like satire, like really really funny, really comical, and there were racist jokes within the play, but they were sort of Muslims saying it about themselves, so like laughing at themselves. So it was
Yeah.
just a lot of like racial satire in that respect. And so we came back and we had a big discussion about it in our group. And then this girl just felt so comfortable to put up her hand and say, and she said that when she came out of the station in Stratford, she felt intimidated because she was the only white person um,
Wow.
around. Yeah, this
Mm.
is what she said in front of everyone.
Mm.
And then when she went to the theatre to watch it, she felt uncomfortable because she didn't know whether to laugh at the jokes because she was one of the few white people in the audience.
Mm.
And I was just like, oh my God, poor you. And like,
Yeah.
because, and then I remember saying to her, she was from Cambridge, and I said, so if I went to Cambridge and I came out of the station, would I feel intimidated? No, but I
Mm.
would probably be the only like ethnic minority in the, or one of the few people that are brown
Yeah.
in the station. So why can you feel uncomfortable but I don't? What are you trying to say here?
Mm.
Like let's unpick that.
Yeah.
um
And it's probably
and
actually really good that she had that experience, because yeah, because even though, like you say, like what is she getting at, for her
yeah,
for her
so
to see a
yeah,
side that she doesn't normally see, even though she might not
she felt
realize it.
uncomfortable and she felt threatened. It
Mm.
was like, but you feel threatened by just people walking in a station. No one did
Mm.
anything to you, no one said anything to you, you got to your destination fine.
Mm.
You just felt uncomfortable because you were the only white person in an ethnically diverse area.
Mm.
um but that's one situation, whereas like that's every time I go to the theatre in central London, that's my experience.
Yeah.
But no one thinks about that. That's not, how can you feel uncomfortable? Nothing, you know?
Yeah, I guess another reason why I think it's important that she had that experience and other people like her have that experience is because um, there can be this lack of empathy and understanding for people of
Yeah.
ethnic minority, that they feel out of place when they're the the only ethnic minority in an audience.
Yeah.
But for them to actually see the other point of view and really understand that is so important, and not to
Yeah,
pass it
but
aside.
also, yeah, but also looking at it as a problem. Like, we get on with it. We're in
Mm,
situations all the time where you'll go to the theatre, you'll go to the workplace. Every member of your management team is white. That's every day.
mm,
But, you know, it may feel slightly uncomfortable, but it's something that we've learned to live with. Like, we haven't, we'd like it to be more diverse, 100%, but it's
mm,
just our everyday lives. But now when it happens to you, it's a problem.
mm. Yeah,
And that,
yeah,
you felt so freely to put up your hand and say, oh, I felt really uncomfortable. Well, I'm in this lecture hall with everyone who's white. What, I've been doing this for 3 years, love.
yeah,
So it's
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
this is my everyday. So it was just really interesting. I can't remember what the original point was.
um,
um, what were we
yeah.
talking about?
Well, yeah. So you went to see this play, that which was
Oh yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I remember. So the notion of like trying to make the theatre world more ethnically diverse wasn't something that we looked at, because structurally the syllabus wasn't tailored to look at those type of things. It's something that we touched upon often, not often, but we
Mm,
did touch upon it at times. But on my course there were one, two, four, uh, three others who were black, and me, who I'm mixed race,
mm.
and then that was it.
Yeah. And to be honest,
Um,
from a syllabus point of view and from a teaching point of view, it doesn't matter even if every one of your students are white. It's still an important thing to be learning.
yeah, 100%. It's an important thing to learn. But what I'm saying is, even if we wanted to, the odds would be not like, we would be outnumbered,
Mm,
because like we would be four people in a whole massive group wanting to do one thing that's important, to like wanting to touch upon ethnic diversity within the theatre. But everyone else, if they decided to do something else, regardless, would be outvoted.
yeah, well, that's a shame because that. I mean, I'm saying this as a white man. I think it's a shame that people would vote just along ethnic lines. Do you know what I mean? Like for me, an issue with an ethnic minority issue is a societal issue. It's like it affects everyone,
Yeah,
and we should be empathetic of people,
yeah,
whatever their situation is.
yeah.
Um,
And don't get me wrong, to be honest, it's not something that we can talk about it now in hindsight, but it's not something that
sure,
I brought up during uni,
sure,
because
yeah,
it's not something like you just roll with it and you
yeah.
just go with whatever you're doing in university. But I think now that I look back at certain experiences when I was in uni, I'm just like, no, that wasn't okay. Like,
Mm,
just so many things. I'm just like, no, this is
yeah.
not okay.
So
Um,
what do you think are some of the barriers? Like what like um and you can be as honest as you want about this, in terms of yeah, wherever you think there are problems that need to be addressed. Like what do you think might be some of the things that are preventing more ethnic minority students or actors, or just generally going
I just,
into the theatre
I
scene?
just think that like you see the same black and brown people on TV, or like, I'm talking about your everyday Emmerdale, EastEnders, or whatever. Like, you see the same cohort of black and brown people
Mm,
on your TV all the time,
mm,
like all the time. And it's like, I feel like for people of color, it's okay, we've already got a black present, like we can have one, we're allowed to have one brown main presenter or actor, but there can be multiple white female or males.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, well, that post is already taken,
Mm.
so by that person, and then, you know, do you understand what I'm saying? I don't think I'm articulating this very well, but I just feel like there's not, it feels for me that there's not enough room for multiple black and brown people to make it in the industry, because it's like it's very tokenistic.
Right, so it's like
um
they've ticked a box. They've ticked we've got the black person
yeah,
doing that
yeah,
role,
yeah,
and that we've ticked the
yeah,
box now, so that we're done with that type thing.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what I feel like, and I just feel like um people are now having to make their own, luckily people are creating their own content, and they're making opportunities for themselves to
Mm.
be recognized in mainstream media, which is really good and really amazing, and people just need to keep on doing that. But you know, if we relied on other people giving us opportunities, then it wouldn't happen, to be
Mm.
honest. And I just think that um you know, if you look at like things like, you know, when there was going to be a black Hermione in Harry Potter,
Mm.
everyone went insane, like they lost their shit, because a fictional character was going to be played by a black woman,
Mm.
and her, like, why is that an issue, you
Mm.
know?
Yeah.
But why is she not allowed, why is Hermione, why is a black woman not allowed to play a bright, witty character in a play? Like,
Mm.
why do you not see that picture? And it's just like, because people, I don't know, and I don't know how to explain it, but just things like that, you
Yeah.
know, it's an effort for
Yeah.
people, because you know there's going to be a backlash. There shouldn't ever be a backlash when you just have, you know, it should be down to whether that person is good for the role or not. Not,
Exactly.
oh, we've got the next black James. Do you know what I mean? Everything's the
Yeah.
next black this, the next black that.
Yeah.
It's like, why can't they just be that person?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
No, it's a
it's
really interesting point around that. And I guess it really depends on the character as well. Like most of the time, it just doesn't matter. Like obviously, let's say
yeah,
there's two roles. There's like a slave owner, for example, and a slave, and it's sort of the slavery time. Then obviously the actor playing the white slave owner should be white, and you know, so that's what you're depicting during that time. But for most scenarios, like James Bond or
especially when they're fictional characters. But the problem is when people pick up a book and they read a story, the instant image in their head is not a black family, it's a
mm,
white family, because
mm,
that's the norm, that's the societal norm, and that's what's been indoctrinated into our brains
mm,
for years and years and years and years. You don't see black dolls in the shops, or you know, it's, you really struggle to get a doll that represents, like I really struggled as a child, and I'm quite fair, but I would always have a white Barbie doll with blonde hair and blue eyes
mm,
that doesn't look like me.
mm,
um so you know, that's what people are going by, because that's what they're used to, that's what makes people feel safe. And for
mm,
some reason people feel threatened or intimidated by an image of a black family. When I was younger, I was in stage school and I did an advert for Crown Paint, and I was probably 4. um I don't know whether I told you this in the last time. Did I?
I'm not sure.
I don't
I
think
don't
I
think
did,
so. No.
but I did an advert for Crown Paint, and it was on billboards. Basically, there was a white woman and a black man and me in the advert, and they piloted this campaign in London and up north. Up north, everyone complained. There were thousands and thousands of complaints
Oh
about
my
this,
god.
how disgusting it was. This was probably 94, 95.
What? What? Wait.
How,
Sorry. Carry on.
yeah, how like disgusting. People were so appalled by this advert. So they pulled it. They
Just to be
pulled the
clear,
campaign.
what were they disgusted at? Just so we
The
know.
fact that you had a like interracial couple.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, so they just kept it in London.
That is mad, isn't it? That
Yeah,
I'm
it's
really glad you brought
insane.
that up. Yeah, you definitely didn't bring this up last time. Yeah. That's
It's
unbelievable.
insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for you
And
to be
so
a child at the center of that, like looking back, like,
yeah,
yeah.
like it's wild. Like it's absolutely insane. So, people for some reason have an issue with that. So I think, and also like I'm at an age now, like I'm gonna be 30 next month, and it's only now that I'm starting to unpick certain things through my own reading, and because I wasn't taught things like this in school, you just went along with it. Even in university, I look back and I'm like, kick myself for some of the things that I let slide,
Mm.
because I wasn't equipped with the knowledge that I have now, or the social awareness, or
Yeah.
you would just let things slide. People will say things and you would know, you'd feel that that's not okay,
Yeah.
but you would just let it go,
Mm.
because I guess I didn't have I wasn't able to articulate myself in a way that I can now,
Yeah.
to be able to identify specifically like why that is wrong, and telling someone why that is not okay.
Yeah, no, I think it's really, again, it's a really good point you brought up, and that story was really, yeah, unbelievable, to be honest. Like, even though it was just as heinous if that story had happened back in the 1950s, it would at least be like, well, it was 1950s, but that was 1994, did you say?
Yeah, so around that
Which
time, I
is,
think it was like 4 or 5.
yeah, and I think, again, I'm speaking as a white man, so I don't have the same, yeah, I don't have the experience, and I haven't lived that life. But it's interesting as well. So I've always been a massive James Bond fan, and
Yeah.
yeah, I've got all the films, apart from the last one that was released because I didn't actually think it was that good. But yeah, I was fanatic when I was a kid, like absolutely loved James Bond, and then the whole Idris Elba thing came up, and like you say, another really good point you made is that instead of it just being is here's an actor in that role, it has to be here's a black person in this role, and here's
Yeah,
this,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know. Um,
yeah.
and I sort of brought this up with, I won't mention who, but a couple of people I know, and I asked them what they thought about, yeah, James Bond becoming black. Um, and to my surprise, they said that James Bond shouldn't be black, and
Really?
I was really surprised. And I think it's just when you think this sort of unconscious bias or unconscious,
Yeah, that's the thing. You can have conversations with someone all the time, and because you don't ever really have like these racial conversations, or conversations about race
mm,
like every day
mm,
with with certain people, like your
especially
work colleague, like with, yeah, or
especially
things like
white
that.
people
But
don't
then
have this conversation enough.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm,
So, well, like me and my friends will have conversations about this all the time, but there'll be
mm,
certain people, like you might meet someone at work who you become really close with, or friends with, and then when you get on this subject, you're like, wow, those are your views. Okay,
yeah,
cool,
yeah,
that's fine.
yeah, exactly,
Um,
yeah.
and you need to take a step back. But yeah, it's crazy that,
Yeah. And it just really threw me back. And it's like you don't actually realise how some of these views, how close they are to home. Um
yeah,
and yeah, because like I said, I've been a Bond fan all my life, and it just didn't cross my mind. Like it's like Idris Elba is a fantastic actor. I was just thinking of all the things about him, like the grittiness he
yeah,
showed in stuff like Luther, but the
yeah,
suaveness he showed, just thinking about how that fits with James Bond.
yeah,
It just, I mean, obviously because it was so much in people's consciousness, and none of us are truly colorblind. I was aware that he
yeah,
was black, but it was just surprising how much to actually say that this person shouldn't be in this role. It was just
yeah.
so surprising. And these are
And the
people
thing
that
is,
they're not sort of people on the fringes of society. They're not, really right wing. They're actually just
yeah,
the people I was talking to are very reasonable, and I really value their opinion on a lot of things. It's just you
yeah.
find these little. Again,
But
I
that's
say as a
the
white
thing,
man,
people need to understand like their unconscious biases, and need to understand that, like, if they were in a workplace and they were interviewing and a colleague of theirs turned around and said they shouldn't get that because they're black, they would
mm,
be like, that's so racist. But
mm,
this is Idris Elba's job.
mm,
Okay, so
yeah,
you're basically saying a black man shouldn't have that job, regardless of what it is, regardless of it's James Bond, regardless of anything. That's his job. So you are saying, you are denying a man a job
yeah,
because of his race,
yeah, yeah,
fundamentally.
yeah, exactly,
And
yeah,
people just don't, like, people think that that's okay, like, and it blows my mind that people think that that is just an okay comment to say.
mm, yeah,
Like, it's just like with the whole Tesco thing, when they had the recently with the advert about halal meat. I'm never buying halal meat. I mean, I'm never shopping in Tesco again. Like, what?
yeah.
Okay.
So my view, and I'd be really interested to see your point of view on this, because I'm always happy to be proven wrong, especially about stuff that I don't fully understand. Um, my view is we sort of people need to have the free speech to say their unconscious biases, and for this stuff to come up, for it to be challenged. So I think, for example, when I spoke to these people and they said this view on James Bond being black, I'm glad they said that, because if they didn't, then I couldn't challenge it, or someone even better than me couldn't challenge it. And I guess the same as I guess it ties into the girl in your lecture. Um, I think that's where, and I know it's a tricky line, because you've got to be careful with free speech, because then you get people saying horrendous stuff and inciting hate and all that. Um, but as a general principle, I wonder if it's actually better for people to say their point of view and then for it to be completely pulled apart, or for them to feel like they can't say it.
I
What's your
think
sort of
that
view on
it's
that?
I think the issue with that is, who are the people that are going to pick that apart?
Right,
Because the people that are going to pick that apart, 9 times out of 10, are going to be black or brown or ethnic minority people, right? Majority of will have an issue with what people are saying, right? They're the
right,
people that are going to pick that apart. Those people aren't listened to in society anyway, which is why people have those views in the first place.
right,
So I think I get what you're saying, but the people that will challenge that are the people that are often silenced.
right.
The black female, and I'm not black, so but I'm speaking from experiences from my friends and things like that. I
Mm,
myself have my own privileges of being a lighter skinned black person.
right.
But you're if someone said that I'm just thinking of like in a work environment,
Mm,
and if you had that conversation about James Bond, and someone had an issue with James Bond being black, and you had your black female colleague, I say black female because they're most underrepresented
mm.
um uh person in anything, but your black female challenges that, right? But the moment she challenges that, she's at risk of becoming angry black female.
Mm,
She's at risk of becoming, that pro black, like
yeah. Being stigmatized,
that
basically.
stereotype.
Yeah,
And she opens herself up for the onslaught of assumptions, and um the eye rolling, or the here she goes again, and you know what I mean. I just feel like that is could potentially then be damaging and do the opposite of the desired effect. Although, like, it's like an ideology that would be the case, where people could say that, and then people would be able to challenge it, and then their views would change. But then you would need more people to have opposing views. And what we find now is that people are feeling more and more comfortable to be so overt about those things.
Mm,
um and people who aren't white, who aren't black, don't feel confident enough to challenge those people because they don't want to be perceived in a certain way.
right.
And so, I'm sure you are confident enough and wouldn't have any doubt in your mind to challenge certain things,
Mm,
but that's not always the case. It's the people that sit on the fence that's a problem. So, yes, that would work if you had people sort of aligning themselves to challenge
mm,
those views. But at the moment, we don't have that. We have a lot of people who sit on the fence,
yeah.
who, you know,
That's
don't really, yeah.
that's another really good point. It depends on who you're around because, like you say, um, if someone's got a really strong opinion and they're around other people who don't really like conflict and they don't like to have
Yeah,
strong opinions about things, then that person will be the most heard. They will be, and it will dominate.
yeah,
Um, and in that situation, I can see what you're saying. Then more sort of racist views will then thrive, and then they can just gain momentum. Um,
yeah.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
you're all the moment you just, I just think that when you challenge people's racial biases in situations like that, when you want to have those discussions, I think for black and brown people, it's very it's territory that is, you're risking a lot of things. For someone else, I just think for a white person it will be just a debate or a conflict, but for a black person you're then at risk of being labeled as aggressive,
mm,
being labeled as, the angry black woman. You could potentially miss out on opportunities. You then ostracize yourself. And I just think that it's so much more than having a discussion. Like,
mm,
I think for black and brown people, you put so much more on the line when you have those discussions, because you're like, this could not, it's not about, the discussion there and then. It's like weeks on from that,
mm,
you're, everyone's perception of you, and you just, I don't know, it's like
yeah,
you have to I feel like when you're in the workplace, you have to become a chameleon, and that's unfortunate for black and brown people in the workplace, or ethnic minorities. You have to adapt, and you have to constantly. I feel like certain times you have to constantly just become. I may as well just say it. Just become whiter.
right,
Like, I just that's that. It's probably not the right way to say it, but I just feel like that's what you have to do, because people get for some reason or another, people are, you know, scared, I guess,
yeah,
or they're a bit like, oh, like the thing that really gets me at work is when, like, I feel like people will label you as like, oh, you're very sassy, but I feel like what they've done is they've replaced the word sassy with like black, like they've replaced the word black with sassy. Like,
yeah,
you want to say I've got attitude. That's what, but it's always like sassy is like an appropriate way of saying it, of masking um what you really want to say.
right. Sort of like the
um
different labels between men and women. Like if women are like quite clear with their instructions, then they're called bossy, but men would just be called
yeah, yeah, yeah,
a good leader or whatever
yeah, yeah,
that sort of thing.
exactly,
Right.
exactly. um but yeah, so I think, going back to what you were saying, like, I do understand what you're saying, but I think that's um
Because I
a
guess
bit.
sorry.
Go on.
No, I guess it's just from my point of view because I'm someone who likes to challenge.
Yeah,
So then for me, yeah, I see what you're saying. For me, it's good probably when these sort of people pop up, because am in a position of privilege, so that it's not gonna affect me as much as if it was someone of an ethnic
yeah. So
minority
I
challenging. And
think it's so important. It's so important for people like you who will challenge um people's opinions, and, you know um make people see a different point of view. I think it's really, really important
mm,
for um for people to understand their white privilege and use that to educate others who are ignorant in certain aspects. but sometimes it is really hard for people of color to constantly challenge that, because you've got to pick your battles,
Yeah.
because you know we've got to pay rent too, and if I did that
Yeah.
all the
Sure.
time at work, I really wouldn't have a job.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. So have
um
you found that in some ways with, I mean, you don't have to be specific with people or places or anything, but have you found an aspect of you having to bite your tongue? Whereas,
yeah, oh, 100%,
yeah,
like 100%. Yeah,
wow.
definitely, where people think um they're they're being funny, or they make a comment, and they a lot since I've gotten older, and it is difficult, because you're trying to maintain professionalism when, to be honest, you just want to punch someone in their face,
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah, yeah.
or just stupid things like, and just, I know it comes down to ignorance, but also I think if I can pick up a book and teach myself more about things to make me more consciously aware of injustices,
Mm,
then so can you. Like, we
mm,
all have access to Amazon, we all have access to the internet. If you get to a certain age and you still have certain viewpoints, and you're in certain industries where it is ethnically diverse, then you need to educate yourself.
yeah.
If you are leading a team who are Muslim, Sikh, you know, Jewish, or whatever, you need to be aware of people's religions, their cultures, so you don't overstep the mark yourself, and you understand if someone's asking, oh, I need holiday for this, or this has happened, or I need a certain break so I can go and pray, or you know what I mean?
Mm,
Like,
mm,
you need to be aware,
mm,
so you can empathize with people, you can be a good leader, you can understand, you may not be able to like really understand because you're different,
mm,
but you will have a sound knowledge of what people are going or have gone through, what they're talking about. Listen to people, don't just make your own assumptions
mm,
about something that you know nothing about. And that's the thing, people always love to tell people how they feel. Oh no, that's not racist because da 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 da. Are you black? Like, this is what I had to say to someone the other day, and I
mm,
was just like, if you are not black, brown, or whatever race you're talking about, do not tell people how they feel, because you do not
mm,
know.
mm.
It's like, as a male, you cannot tell a woman how she feels.
No.
As a female, you cannot tell a male how that, because you have no idea. So please, like, and it's like everyone just feels so comfortable with telling people like, no, that's not that, or no, that's not. How do you don't know until you can actually feel it
Mm,
yourself, and when you actually go through it.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I just think that that's the biggest thing for me. Like, if you manage in any sector, if you manage any diverse group of people,
Mm,
or just in general, you should know. Like, you should just know, and you should be able. If you're bringing kids into this world, you should fucking educate them. Um, Pick up a book. If you're angered by something and something triggers you, then research and find more about why you're triggered and figure that shit out.
mm,
Like,
yeah.
um,
I
because
think,
it's just, go
sorry,
on,
I was
sorry.
just gonna say, like, I think part of it as well, maybe, I'm not speaking for everyone who struggles with this, but I think a part of it from a privileged point of view, or an ethnic majority point of view, is people underlyingly not actually accepting diversity. I
Oh
just sort of
yeah.
got that from what you were saying, is just like people, like, because if you just accept it, like, that I'm right, I'm going to go into, let's say you got a job, you're going into a very diverse workplace. It's, maybe you've come from a background where you've seen very, very few people of different ethnicities.
Yeah.
um it's like, this is a fact. You don't unconsciously fight against that and be like, oh well, I may have like five Muslims on my team, but I'm not Muslim, so I don't need to know what they get up to. I don't need,
Yeah.
and it's just it's an unconscious thing of like, this is the situation, this is the country you live in.
Yeah.
we live in a very, very, very diverse country. I mean, I count one of my privileges actually. I went to a secondary school, so I'm from Watford, which is a wide range of just very, very diverse in lots of ways, even economically. But yeah, it's very diverse. So when I was younger, as we all are, we just accept the environment we're in, and I grew up with friends of all different backgrounds and ethnicities, and it didn't have to be a conscious thing at the time of like, oh well, it's just I grew up with them, so I naturally learned stuff along the way, and therefore it's not a
Yeah.
surprise, and it's just accepted to me, you know. And that is a privilege because it, like, for me racism isn't even a thought because it's just normal, it's just my normal background, I guess.
Yeah.
Whereas someone who has grown up a lot more shielded in terms of the exposure to diversity. Um, Unfortunately, if you're going to be working in an area or you move to an area where
Yeah.
this is a fact of life, you've got to change pretty quickly. And if you don't change, then unfortunately you're going to be way behind, and stuff has moved on. Like,
And it's a choice. Like it is definitely a choice because I went to uni with a guy from Cornwall, and he said that the first time he ever saw someone who was black was when he was 13, because he was
wow,
in,
yeah,
I know, right? But he was so he asked so many questions. He was so inquisitive. He wanted to learn. Like he
mm,
wanted to learn. He wanted to understand. He wanted to be culturally aware of things.
mm.
Nicest person I've ever met. So lovely.
So he took on an
He
approach that you think
he
people should be taking on in that
yeah, I
situation.
don't know, so I'm going to find out and I'm going to ask questions. Not I don't know and I'm afraid, because I
Mm,
just feel like the attack is basically you're afraid of something, like you're afraid of difference.
mm,
That's what your issue is.
yeah,
Um, you
yeah,
know, not you know, a lot of, if you don't know something, then if I don't know, then I'm intrigued to find out more about something.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Fear of what you don't understand, I guess. Like
yeah,
that's what some people have. Yeah.
it's just bizarre, like it's so crazy. And then people are like, oh well, I sometimes I'm a bit scared to ask because I don't want to seem racist. I'm sorry, but how is it depends how you're going to ask me, because if you're going to go on the attack, then yeah, it's racist. But if you're asking me a question about something
Mm,
culturally, or I don't know, about black people, then I'm going to answer it. I'm not going to accuse you of being racist,
mm,
but just don't do the ignorant thing of asking stupid questions, like about, I don't know, just I remember I interviewed this guy once, and it was about there was a question about cultural diversity, and his example of cultural diversity was, oh yeah, I used to work with an African woman once, and she used to come in with different hairstyles. Okay, so yeah, I had to get used to that, like seeing her one day with braids, and then 2 days later she had a different. So yeah, I guess. Oh, well done you for being horrible of a woman's hairstyle, because it's so difficult to get your head around that, isn't it? Like, what on earth? Like, what on earth?
yeah.
Like, he didn't get the job. Like,
Yeah.
but it's just like crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just
Yeah, like you
bizarre.
say, it's the approach, and I think that was a really good example you gave of someone who, they didn't have the privilege that I had, that they grew up around, a very diverse group of people, but he
But
still
people, but
didn't
yeah,
approach it. He approached it in a good way. He was like, he really wanted to find out. He really took this person, I guess, as a human being, as like, oh, you're different from me. That's interesting. I'd like to learn more, as opposed to like, oh, I read in the Daily Mail that all people like you do this and that or whatever. That
yeah.
he's actually curious and open minded and like, what can I
And
learn?
and even if you don't have the privilege of going to, or living in London, or going to, or anywhere that's culturally diverse,
Mm,
I'm sure you watch films, I'm sure you
yeah.
have the internet. So, there are ways of finding out, even if you live under a rock, there are ways.
it
Because,
it's
go on, sorry.
difficult though. I think like, again, correct me if I'm wrong. I think especially like the internet and films and stuff. If you grow up in a culture which has got a view, for example, of black people, and
Yeah,
then the films that your parents will let you watch, or the opinions they'll have after the film, or the rabbit holes you can go like tumble down on the internet, for example, like people just get sort of groomed into these ways of thinking, and we all have a bubble on social media, but imagine this bubble is like a really racist bubble. um it's really difficult, I think, to rely on that stuff, especially as a kid. um but I think what I feel, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, the most effective way is interaction, um with
you can
people.
interact though using the internet and things like that.
Yeah.
I think it depends what, like, if you have such a strong opinion about immigration and you're one of those get the immigrants out and
mm,
don't leave and whatever.
mm,
um if you want to find out facts, and you strongly believe that immigrants come here and take the white person's job, like that's what you believe strongly, and
mm,
that's why you have certain political beliefs. Why don't you do some research into how many jobs a Polish person has taken away from a white person,
mm,
do you know what I mean? Like,
mm,
if you have those opinions which are really, really strong,
mm,
then research, actually, like, facts.
mm.
And it just comes down to ignorance. People like that don't want to research, and that's why they have those stupid opinions, because they're false
Yeah, and
and they
like,
don't make sense.
and it's like an attitude towards learning as well. Like, some people feel, I know what I need to know, my beliefs are
Yeah,
right, and that's it. I don't need to justify it. I don't need to. Whereas actually,
yeah,
you're a teacher, so you obviously have a leaning towards, you love learning. You really believe in people
yeah,
learning and growing. So maybe it's
yeah,
that as well. It's just, if people, like, clearly this person you talked about from Cornwall, he understood, maybe on an unconscious level, how important it was to learn and not to just be entrenched in these beliefs and never question them.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
s-
It's true.
mm,
It's crazy because then I have someone that's my age, obviously not naming any names, but said to me that their dad said that, mixed race people are just confused and they don't know whether they're black or white. So they just grow up confused and messed up. And I was like, your dad, as a white male, is speaking on behalf of the entire mixed race population on Earth,
yeah.
and saying that. I was like, okay, based on what?
Mm,
Like, how? And that's the thing, and that's like the white privilege thing, is that like, people seem to think that they are able to pinpoint how people feel and
mm,
make assumptions of how people feel, and it's like, no,
yeah.
you cannot. Like, why do you think that you have the authority to do that?
Mm,
Like, it's just like, what? How
mm.
did you even formulate that opinion?
And you bring up a good point. Like, I'm guessing this guy was in his like 40s or 50s or whatever.
Yeah,
Um, People can go their whole lives to their deathbed and never truly learn. Like
yeah,
just having that realization of, like, oh, maybe this belief I have, you know, maybe I should just question it. Like that
yeah,
and there's, we've all done it, and there's some beliefs that you actually
yeah,
realize, actually, that's a true
yeah,
belief, and that I still got that belief because you've questioned it. It's almost like a scientist. You pick it apart and you go, what's the research here? What's the blah blah blah? And you think,
yeah,
oh no, that was a good belief. I'm still a supporter of that party, for example, or whatever.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but other beliefs, and these are the really important ones, are the ones that you question, and then you go, oh shit, actually that's not true. It's just not true. There's
yeah,
no truth to it, and therefore, I should change my beliefs, and therefore my actions should change as well. Um,
yeah.
Yeah.
What was interesting in that is that his job used to be a prison officer.
Wow.
I was like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and that's where he based his opinion on, from the prisoners that he used to like, because apparently that's what he saw at work. I was just like, this is ridiculous.
Mm.
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
crazy.
Well,
You won't be going round there for dinner.
no. Cool. Well, unfortunately, that is like an hour, over an hour.
Ah, that was really quick.
I know it's gone really fast again.
Yeah.
And yeah, we haven't actually talked about a lot of the stuff we were gonna,
I know.
gonna
Oh my
talk about.
God.
But again, like it's just been wicked. Like we went off on this tangent, but it was so interesting. And it was
Yeah, definitely.
there was so much that I'm really glad you said. There was so many good points that you made and so many experiences you had, um, that I think are so important. And yeah, I'm really glad that you brought them up because yeah, I think more and more people should listen to these sort of experiences and beliefs. Um, yeah.
Well, thanks for letting me come on and talk and rant.
Cool. All right. Well, yeah, we'll sort of bring it to a close there. I'd love to hear anyone else's points of views on what we talked about. But yeah, I would say with this one in particular, if you enjoyed it, please share it. It doesn't have to be publicly. You don't have to do it, on social media. You can just send it to someone, the link, someone over text or privately or whatever. Yeah, I think this is an episode for sure that would be really good for as many people to listen to as possible. So please.
Yeah, definitely. Especially if they're a little bit ignorant. Make
Yes,
them listen.
exactly. Yes, yeah. Cool. Well, yeah, just thank you very much, Jade. Thanks again.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.